Hi, Dr. Wright. Do you want to get started?
We can.
Okay. Are you ready to go?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. And is it okay if I record?
I see you are recording, so yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Okay. You're much better than this than I am. So, okay. All right. Well, good evening. And, thank you for.
I know you can't see us both. We'll kind of work our way in.
Okay.
So, because you are way out of the frame.
This is your son? Is that right?
It's both of us.
Okay.
See, I'm going to try to. Here, I'm going to put you in. I'm going to close this door. We're both here.
Okay.
And so that's where we are.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, welcome, Dr. Wright, John Wright Sr. and John Wright Jr.
Junior.
Yes, right. Co-authors of Extraordinary Black Missourians. So we're happy to have you here tonight. And
Thank you.
so welcome again. You're on.
Okay. You want us to start?
Sure. That'd be great.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be. You had us in once before.
That's right.
For the first edition.
Right.
So it's good to be back. We made some changes. We've added some additional individuals. We've added more pictures, which I think people will find that exciting and enjoyable to see those. And we've added some dates because a number of the people who were in the first edition have passed away. And so it's good to kind of update those things. And then we had a couple of people who got awards, and so that's in there. So that's current information. We've gotten quite a bit of press on this. About 3 weeks ago, our daily paper gave us 3 pages, which was unusual. The Post-Dispatch is normally handles the city, and for us to get that kind of press, it was really an honor to be able to have that kind of spread in the newspaper. So we hope. Have you gotten your copy of the book yet? At the library. Ms. Madison?
Yeah, I have ordered it, but we've not received it yet.
Okay, well, hopefully they'll do that. So we want people to know they can get it. Check it out once it comes.
Oh, for sure. Yes. We have several copies of your first edition. So
hopefully they'll be able to do that. And they can order it on Amazon also.
Right.
I think it's there already.
Yeah.
But it's a edition, and we thought it would be good to highlight some of the Missourians who've done extraordinary things. Many people have never heard of some of these individuals. Some of them are well known. Some of them I hadn't heard of since I started on this project. And so we just hope things will go well with it, and people enjoy it, and their kids will enjoy it, and schools will get a resource they can draw upon as they present lessons in certain areas. And it's something you can do year round. You don't have to wait till Black History Month to bring it out of the closet. And so we just hope that takes place. We have done from pioneers from the early days of the state all the way up to the present day. And I think many individuals have never been heard of before in most circles. I won't put that on everyone. I'll just say in most circles, they haven't heard about it. And they've done some extraordinary things. I think Alvin Coffey, for example, one of the early pioneers, he left St. Louis before the gold rush, right? But at the time of the gold rush, his owner told him he could make enough money to buy his freedom. They went to California. His owner kept the money, sold him to someone else. He convinced his new owner to let him go back to California. He did that, made enough money to buy his freedom and his family's freedom. He became a pioneer, and he was in the only African American in the San Francisco, early California pioneer group. He started a school there, became wealthy, he educated his kids. So, I mean, that's an amazing story of determination. And I like the thing of the story of Sylvia Stark, whom I'd never heard of before I started working on this project. She was also one of the early pioneers. Her family went off to California. Then they ended up in Canada, where she was recognized, I think, 2012 as a Canadian pioneer. So most people don't know about us in Canada. And one group I never have gotten a chance to deal with, I received an article. Many African Americans went to Mexico. And that's a whole new story we got to look at. So the slaves escaped to Mexico, made a living there. It was close to the border, we're right there. And so that's something we need to look at too. Clarence Thomas, some people say, why is Clarence Thomas in there? Well, Clarence Thomas lived in Missouri for a while. He lived in St. Louis. He lived with Margaret Bush Wilson. And she tells me, wait, John, he wasn't that way when he was with me. And so he wasn't as conservative when he lived in her house, because Margaret was a true civil rights fighter. She had graduated from Lincoln Law School. I know Lincoln University is there, but when time came when Lloyd Gaines won his lawsuit, they had a choice of letting Lloyd Gaines into the University of Missouri or building a school here. And they built one in St. Louis. And Margaret Bush Wilson was one of the early graduates of the school. She developed the papers for the Shelley versus Kramer decision, and that decision changed housing patterns all across America, because out of that decision said you cannot put race-restricted covenants on homes because it was against the 14th Amendment. So there's a lot of connections there, and I think we need to recognize those. We have one section, Nathan Young, who was president of Lincoln University, is in the book. He wasn't in the first book, but Nathan Young is credited with bringing a lot of strong reputation and strong academics to Lincoln University. So he's pretty good. And so he was pretty good. And so we have him in the book. And so I think that's good for people to know about his reputation. He was president twice. And I think you had a board of trustees who wanted to control him, and he wasn't being controlled. And so he left him, they needed him, and he came back again. So that's a good story too. One gentleman, Langston Anderson, Langston, who was I guess you'd say, architect down in Potosi. Never heard of him. But the Potosi people liked him so well, they wanted his face to be on a postage stamp. And so many people have never heard of him, but he became a well-known architect who had places here in Missouri and around the country. One thing I think some people were surprised at, Charles Anderson, who was born on a farm in University City. Now, if you look at University City, you won't see any of the history books talk about blacks being landowners in the early history of the city. But he's the gentleman in the airplane that flew Eleanor Roosevelt and made it possible for the president to approve the Tuskegee Airmen. And so he was omitted from University City history, his hometown, and from most books. They don't talk about him. Even in Tuskegee Airmen movie, he's not mentioned by name. So we have him in there, but it's like he's not mentioned. We have Jordan Chambers. He was known as the Black Mayor of St. Louis. He was a politician. If you wanted to get things done in the Black community, you had to go talk to Jordan Chambers. And so we have him in there. And one of the latecomers that's in there is, I'm blocking her name. Where is it? I don't know if that's age or what. The young lady who's on TV all the time now. What's her name now?
Jennifer Lewis?
No, my son's on
the
the
first one.
Brittany Pacnett. My memory's coming back to me. Brittany Pacnett. She's new. She's on news all the time now.
Black Lives Matter.
And so she's Black Lives Matter and quite outspoken on civil rights here. So that's something I think you need to read about. People need to read about. I'm gonna let my son talk to you about some of the people.
I know we were talking about, I guess because we're talking about Jefferson City, there's a lot of Jefferson City connections that are in there, like Robert Hickman. Robert Hickman had tried to help some slaves escape and put them on a raft, and they were found by a riverboat near Jefferson City. And they rescued those slaves and then took them up to Minnesota, around the St. Paul area, where they could be released into free territory. I never knew anything about Robert Hickman. My father mentioned Charles Anderson, who had gone to school at Lincoln University, as did Wendell Pruitt, who also was a famous Tuskegee Airman, won the Distinguished Flying Cross for taking out a destroyer. And a few films, you can see the destroyer being taken out, but Wendell Pruitt was mentioned by name. I think most people in St. Louis know more the name Wendell Pruitt for the association with the housing project Pruitt-Igoe than that of him being a Tuskegee Airman who was killed in a training accident. Believe it or not, he survived the combat part of the war, but could not survive. He was given a plane that he could wrote his family about, and said that he thought it was like a flying death trap, and it proved to be prophetic because he died training another officer. But there are a number of Callie House, who was in the Jefferson City area, who went to help argue for reparations and went petitioning former slaves to do so, and was arrested for mail fraud because they were saying that her efforts were somehow cheating those that she was looking to help. So there are a number of people that are in the book from all over the state, and in particular in the Jefferson City area. We tried to make sure that that there was a well-rounded group of people that were represented.
I noticed you have a few people on the. I'd like to see if they have questions in ways we could maybe pinpoint their interest in what they're interested in, what knowing about. Does anyone want to ask a question?
We see a Carla and a Benita.
No questions?
Madeline, do you have any questions?
Hello?
This is Carla. I was muted, but no, I don't have questions yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Unmute. Okay. No, I'm enjoying your lecture, so by all means, go ahead, please.
Okay.
I-
Who is that? You may say something.
Yeah, it's Madeline. I'm from Kansas City and wonder, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, the journalist, the Kansas City Call, I can't think of her name now. Is she in your book? Whatever.
No,
Okay.
I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of her name either.
I can't either.
She's not in there.
Okay, all right. I noticed that you have in your previous edition, you mentioned the Kansas City Call. Yeah, so.
You know, it's interesting when we talk about Kansas City. I have Gates Barbecue.
Ollie Gates.
Ollie Gates. I have Golly Alley in there. I was going to do Bryant's, and I called Bryant, and the secretary put me his assistant's phone, and so he was having lunch, and so the assistant put me on the phone and said, I told him who I was, and I was calling to get some information. We were doing a book. He said, "Man, you messing up my lunch. I don't have time to talk to you about no book." So you messing with my lunch. So I left him alone, and he's not in the book because I didn't want to mess up his lunch. So if anybody asked me why is Brian in there, he would have been in there. But his manager thought I was messing up his lunch. And so I left him alone. I didn't call back. He seemed quite irritated that I would think of messing up his lunch.
That's funny.
Oh, I know, Mr. Wright, what I wanted to tell you is that Lloyd Gaines, his sister married my mother's brother.
Oh,
And so indirectly, yeah, we're part of that family.
you know, Lloyd Gaines' nephew,
Mhm.
George, went to school with me. We finished
Oh,
from Harris Teachers College together.
okay.
He ended up being a captain of one of the boats. He was in the military. And he said no one knew what happened to Lloyd.
Right.
He said they just don't know what happened to him. And so,
Yeah.
and that's the thing we passed down to in the family. For whatever reason, he disappeared off the map.
That's right.
He had won the case, but when school opened that fall, he could not register because he was lost. He was gone. And so it's a sad thing. But he lived here in St. Louis, and his relatives are still there. But like I said, I went to school with George, and we haven't talked in about 10 years, but
Okay.
George said no one knew what happened, and the family members knew what happened to Lloyd. And so it's sort of a sad thing. But many of our people disappear from history, and no one knows what happened to them, where they went, and some intentionally. There's a gentleman in Stockton, California, one of the pioneers there. No pictures of his early history. All we know, he left from Missouri and went to California, became a meteorological engineer, and quite famous in his work. But he doesn't talk about his past history. He may have been a runaway and wanted to be that part of his life to be omitted, and so we just don't know. Another person, Joseph Penny, who founded Pennytown, we talk about after slavery, a number of blacks went in search of a better life. And Joseph Penny came to Missouri and started a little town, and it grew and it kept growing. And then after things began to open up, people gradually disappeared. And the only thing left of the community now is a church. And I understand that it was purchased by someone, and they said they'll let it stay as long as the family comes once a year, people come once a year to celebrate the founding of the town. But everything around it's gone now. The school, the church, all that. And so we don't know where he died and when he died. We don't know where he came from, but we know the church is there. And that's an interesting thing. Just people come and go and disappear without a trace. And so it's an interesting story to think about.
Have you come across any, in your research, Black suffragists?
Kind of hit that a little closer for me.
Any, Black suffragists,
Women's right to vote.
Not heavily involved.
Mm-hmm.
You read about people who kind of tagged on,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know of anyone who was actually involved from Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I know lots of whites I've read about. I know blacks who were in other states, but I don't know of anyone in Missouri
Mm-hmm.
who were involved.
I know the Deltas and the women of Delta Sigma Theta in DC were very heavily involved in the early movement, despite being unwanted. But that was not in a Missouri context.
Mm-hmm. What sorority was it?
Delta Sigma Theta.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
The early founders were very active in the suffragette movement.
Okay. All right. Will you talk about a little bit about your research? Where do you start? I mean, where do you start at first? Libraries, articles, books you have, what's your normal starting
Well,
point?
start out with the things you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you talk, many times when you talk on other subjects, people tell you about people, do you know this? Are you going to put this person in? I know you did a book. This person's not in there. They did such and such a thing. So it kind of snowballs as it goes. Now, probably from this book, we'll have other people who will call in and say, why didn't you include so-and-so? Well, we didn't know about so-and-so. Well, here's some information on them. Here's a picture on them. And so it kind of snowballs. It goes from there. But generally, you started with stuff you have or stuff someone gives you.
Mm-hmm.
Then it snowballs from there. But when it comes to African Americans, most publications have left us out. It's not like you can go readily to a library and pick up things. George Washington Carver's in most books. Dred Scott's in most books. And then you get history kind of takes a recess. York comes in sometimes. Jim Beckwourth sometimes, but sometimes he's portrayed as white. In the movie, he was portrayed as a white guy. So you get some things from movies, some things from books. Like John was saying that, Junior was saying that Charles Anderson was given a different name in the movie. So you wouldn't know that was his name. So we have to give correct information, and hopefully people will be able to fill in the blanks and put the right name behind the individual and ask the right questions. Sometimes it takes a matter of people giving information and correcting misinformation. Right now in St. Louis, there's a huge debate over Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Malone. Netflix, according to the people who live in this town, got it wrong and have hidden out because it said people jumped all over him because of the information they gave out on Madam C.J. Walker.
They gave a fictional name for Annie Malone and mischaracterized the relationship.
And so it's up to those of us who can get information to put it out there. Because if we don't, it just stays and it gets passed on. The sooner you can correct misinformation, the better off it is for all of us. Because the misinformation gets passed along and everybody uses that as their guide. And so there's a whole lot of misinformation out there. We just hope we can get some of it corrected.
Mr. Wright,
Yes, ma'am.
you said C.J. Walker. Well, without a doubt, I know who that is. Used the products, but Annie Malone, isn't there a parade? Is that the parade?
That's a parade given
St.
for
Louis?
Yes.
Okay,
Madam Walker.
so would you
Madam C.J.
expand on Annie Malone and why the parade?
Annie Malone, just for the record, Madam C.J. Walker used to work for Annie Malone.
When she was Sarah Breedlove, before she blew up and became Madam C.J. Walker.
Oh, okay.
Annie Malone was started one of the early pioneers of beauty care products.
Oh.
Door to door, built an empire, a large complex in St. Louis here. And they sold products all over the, I guess you'd say, the African diaspora. They didn't sell in Europe, but mainly in countries that had large African populations. And she became a benefactor to the Annie Malone Children's Home. She gave $10,000 for the building they're in now. And she was president of the board there. And so in her honor, they have a parade each year.
Okay.
And so it's called the Annie Malone Children's Day Parade. It was a big day during the day when we were segregated because we were confined to the Ville neighborhood mainly. And it would be an all-day event. That was the time you got your winter clothes, you put on your spring clothes.
Mm.
And it started in the afternoon and went all the way to the evening. Cars and floats all day long. People sat on their front porch, in the yard, sidewalk, just enjoying the day, watching all their friends in the parade. All the scouts, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, and the
High school band.
high school bands, it was saying beauty shops had young ladies on the hoods of the cars waving. And so it became a big thing. Then insurance issues came up. If someone got injured, the ambulance could not get through to give them service. So you can't keep having this thing in a community where the ambulance can't get through to provide service for folks if they get hurt. And so they moved over on Natural Bridge and now it's downtown. But all of that is nothing like the old days.
No.
Nothing like the good old days. I'd say good old days. So, but that was the time you just went out and you started out in the afternoon, you spent the day. AAA baseball went on after that. Drum and bugle corps contest on Tandy Park. The bandstand was in front of the children's home. So it was good.
The things that Annie Malone put in place, you probably will recognize in the sales techniques that are used by Amway, Mary Kay. She pioneered a number of the incentive programs that went on, and that were also borrowed by Madam C.J. Walker. So she created an empire by helping women become their own business people. She set them up, gave them training, gave them materials, and helped ordinary women at home set up businesses of their own, becoming affiliates. It was a truly remarkable thing, way ahead of its time, and still exists today in other organizations.
Kind of a precursor to Avon in a way, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Well. So we have not received the book yet. Is it out? Is it out?
It's out.
It is out.
Okay, so it hasn't come from our distributor. I will just say to those listening, your first edition, it's a beautiful book. I love this book. You know, it's great photos, good text. So it's really an achievement. So
Here's a copy of the second edition.
oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, very nice. Okay, I'm looking forward to it. Okay. Well, any other questions? Mhm. No more? Oh, well. Are you going to be, you're still collecting, so are you going to work on a third edition also?
Well, it depends on how much stuff comes in. It depends
Yeah.
on the publisher.
Yeah.
You know, the hardest thing is not to do things in St. Louis, because we could have put more and more stuff about St. Louis individuals. What about the rest of the state? Blacks were scattered throughout the state, but we don't have a lot of documentation of historical events and happenings that they were involved in. So the goal is to find out more about African Americans in Missouri and write about them.
Right. Right. Well,
That's what we'd like to do. And we're open to anyone you know, or if anyone who are people who are listening in know, if they know of individuals they think we should include, let us know.
okay.
Let
All
us
right.
know.
And how should they do that? I mean, send you an
They can
email?
email us or give it to you and you can get it to us.
Okay.
And we'll be
All right.
happy to put that in our folder. So we'll have it for the next time.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll say good evening if there's no other questions. And thank you so much, for telling us about this book. Yes, I'm looking forward to it very much. So
Thank you.
Thank
thank
you
you
for having
both. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.